Almost 10 years after my brother accused me of SA and ruined my life and career, the truth has finally come to light. Henry, my brother, was always the favorite in our family. Growing up, he could do no wrong in anyone's eyes. Once high school wrapped up, I felt the need to break free and find my own path, so I moved out. I spent the next few years in a different city for college, eventually earning my MBA in 5 years. I was lucky enough to land a job back in my hometown. During that time, I didn't keep in touch with my family much, only reaching out for birthdays and holidays. My brother wasn't exactly the sharpest tool in the shed, he barely scraped through high school. I had dropped out of college, and my parents helped him start a small hardware shop to get him on his feet. I was genuinely happy for him, but I was focused on my own life. I had a girlfriend named Jenny, whom I met in college, and she was from the same city. When we moved back home, we decided to live together. Jenny quickly found a job too, and we started building our lives together. During the holidays in 2006, I introduced her to my family. To my surprise, they were really welcoming and made me feel more appreciated than I had in the past 22 years. I noticed my brother kept glancing at her throughout the gathering, but I brushed it off. At first, he started visiting my apartment a bit too often. Our meetups went from once every 3 months to almost daily in no time. At that time, I had to set some limits and let him know that he was welcome to drop by occasionally, but I really didn't want him hanging out at my place every day. He usually showed up in the evenings when Jenny and I were just trying to relax after a long day at work. This led to a big argument with my parents. Eventually, he apologized and promised not to bother me anymore. From then on, he only came around once a month on weekends, which I was totally fine with. He even tried to chat with Jenna, but it never went beyond that, so I didn't mind. This routine continued for a while, and in 2009, I popped the question to her, and we shared the news with the family. My parents were thrilled, but my brother just shook my hand and walked out of the little celebration I had set up. After that, I didn't see him for a couple of weeks. We tied the knot in 2010, and I noticed my brother had a date named Kate, telling us he was seeing her. I thought maybe he could finally let go of whatever feelings he had for Jenny and focus on his own life. Things moved quickly for them too, as they got married just 9 months later in 2011. Our marriage was going really well. We welcomed our first daughter, Alice, in 2011, and then our second, Sarah, in 2013. Unfortunately, my brother's marriage didn't turn out as they had hoped, and they split in 2012. A few weeks after the divorce was finalized, Kate reached out to me, saying that Henry was still hung up on Jenny, which was a major reason for their breakup. I felt bad for her and wished her all the best. I also had a chat with Jenny about her experiences with Kate, and she mentioned that Kate had always seemed a bit cold and distant towards her right from the start. I chose to confront my brother in front of the family, asking him why he was ruining his life over his obsession with my wife. He was caught off guard by my question and denied everything. We ended up having a huge argument that concluded with me forgiving him, but telling him he wasn't welcome in my home anymore. My parents and Jenny spoke to me, reminding me that he was still family no matter what. So, for the sake of everyone involved, I decided to keep things civil. It felt like he was genuinely trying to improve himself after that, and we moved on with our lives. Fast forward to July 25, 2015, and I still remember that day vividly. I was busy running errands while my wife took our kids to visit their grandparents. After lunch, I got a call from my dad, sounding really angry, asking me to come over. When I arrived, the tension was palpable. My wife was in tears, and my parents were trying to comfort her, along with some other family members. I asked what was going on, and to my shock, my parents accused me of being a rapist. I was completely taken aback and confused. They claimed that at a party I attended a couple of weeks earlier, I had raped a girl and then texted her, warning her not to tell anyone or there would be consequences. I had known Amanda for a while, we went to high school together, and she was part of a bigger friend group I hung out with occasionally. According to her, after a party at a club, I followed her to her car and things happened there. She sent screenshots of our supposed conversation to my wife and told her the whole story. My dad slapped me hard, and my parents said they never wanted to see me again. Jenny was furious and declared that it was over between us. I tried to explain that I didn't do anything wrong, but no one wanted to listen. I was basically thrown out of the house, and my parents said Jenny and the kids wouldn't be coming back. My dad said he'd come over to grab their things and bring them to my place. When he arrived, I begged him to reconsider, but he just packed a few bags and told me to never reach out again, threatening to call the cops if I did. Later that evening, Henry shared the screenshots and all the details in our family WhatsApp group, and I was kicked out unanimously. In the following days, even friends were calling me, expressing their disgust and telling me to stay away. I was completely shattered during that time. I couldn't eat or focus on work. My boss caught wind of the rumors but couldn't do anything until there was actual police involvement. He suggested that I should leave the organization voluntarily to keep my record clean, promising that he'd make sure I wouldn't even have to serve my notice period. I tried to push back, but he warned me that if the police showed up at my door, he'd be in trouble too, and in that case, I wouldn't get any severance, and my record would be ruined. Reluctantly, I agreed and left the company a few days later. In mid-August, while I was still feeling sorry for myself, I got 2 documents from the court. One was a disarmament letter and the other was divorce papers. I was pretty drunk, but I went to my parents' house anyway, only for my brother to come at me, saying I was a disgrace to the family and that it was good I was disowned. By the time he was done with me, I had blood on my face and could barely stand. My parents and my wife just watched from a distance and didn't intervene. After a while, I managed to get up, feeling like a complete mess, and realized I had lost everything and everyone I cared about. I stayed cooped up in my apartment throughout the divorce. It went as smoothly as it could, considering the circumstances. Since I was unemployed and my now ex-parents said they'd cover the child's expenses, I didn't have to worry about child support or alimony. By January 2016, I was officially divorced, and picking up the pieces of my life was proving to be a real challenge. During this time, I thought about confronting Amanda, but the more I considered it, the more I realized it could backfire on me. The laws in my country are pretty tough on men, and one wrong move could land me in jail for 5 to 6 years. Just to give you some context, my brother had framed me for rape 8 years ago, but the truth finally came to light. Then, I got a call from an unknown number. When I answered, I heard someone crying, and I immediately recognized the voice. It was Amanda, the girl my brother had used to set me up, and I hung up, trying to keep my anger in check. Kim was with me and noticed my expression, so she came over, concerned. I told her who it was, struggling to hold back my tears and frustration. When the call came through again, Kim answered and put it on speaker. A guy introduced himself as Amanda's fiancé and said she wanted to apologize for everything she had said before. Then Amanda got on the line, crying and apologizing repeatedly. Kim took charge of the conversation while I was a mess, unsure of how to react. Eventually, Kim suggested they would call back later. She quickly called Derek, who listened patiently as Kim filled him in on the situation. He gave me a comforting hug and recommended we arrange a meeting with a lawyer to discuss her confession, just in case any issues arise in the future. I reached out to my lawyer, explained everything, and he agreed to set up a meeting at his office, giving me a date and time. I gave Amanda a call and told her she needed to swing by my lawyer's office so we could talk things over. Fast forward 3 days, and we finally met up there. Amanda looked like she hadn't slept in days, and her fiancé was the only one by her side. My lawyer had set up a camera to record everything, and I asked him to help mediate the situation. We sat across from each other, and she started to lay out everything that had happened back in the day. A lot was said, but the main point was that she and my brother had been dating in 2015, and nobody knew about it. He was the mastermind behind the whole road plan, and she went along with it because she was head over heels for him. He had gotten a new phone and swiped my profile picture from WhatsApp to create fake chats with Amanda. I went from tears to pure rage in no time. Honestly, if it weren't for Kim, I might have ended up in serious trouble. Kim was furious too, especially with the pregnancy hormones kicking in, and she really let Amanda have it with her words, even though my lawyer was trying to keep things civil. It was obvious Kim was livid. She even told Amanda's fiancé that if he still wanted to marry her after all this, he was asking for trouble. Fighting back my own anger and tears, I asked them why they were coming clean now. Mark, her fiancé, stepped up and explained that they had been pretty drunk a couple of weeks ago, and Amanda accidentally let slip how she helped an ex ruin a marriage. That stuck with him, and after a lot of questioning, she finally admitted everything. He then pushed her to take responsibility for her actions. If she's looking for some peace in her life, things took a turn after she helped Henry. He became cold and distant, and 6 months later, he ended things. She felt awful about it but was too scared to be honest, so she spent a lot of time in therapy trying to sort through her feelings. When everything was finally out in the open, my lawyer suggested we take a 30-minute break before reconvening. Amanda and Mark left, and my lawyer mentioned that if I wanted, he could pursue defamation against her and my brother. The evidence I had was solid enough to back me up. I was filled with anger, but I didn't want to let it ruin the wedding. I decided to hold off on any actions until after the big day. I told Amanda I'd reach out later, but for now, I didn't want her spreading anything around. I wanted to keep the drama from my ex-family away from my wedding. After the meeting, Kim gave me a hug and said she felt validated for trusting her instincts, like a huge weight had been lifted. I felt the same way. We had a lovely wedding with both James and Derek as the best men, followed by a 3-week honeymoon across Europe. It was an incredible experience for us. I managed to deal with what I'd learned, and Derek advised me to push it to the back of my mind. The honeymoon was mostly great, even though the nightmares were more frequent, but Kim was always there to support me through it all. I had a chat with my therapist, and she mentioned that I'll eventually have to face my ex's family, if only for some closure. After mulling over everything that went down, I decided to reach out to Amanda in July and laid out what she needed to do. I warned her that I'd be taking legal action based on her statement, but if she didn't want to end up in a financial mess, she'd better follow my advice. I told her she needed to have a one-on-one with Jenny and spill everything she told us at the lawyer's office. She was in tears while I was talking, saying that Mark had left her. I told her I wished I could feel bad for her, but honestly, I just didn't. I also mentioned that karma has a way of catching up with everyone. It got her, and now it's coming for my brother too. Thank you for watching this video. For more content like this, subscribe. I post stories like this from across the internet.